So, hello everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank all the participants for joining in today. It's a lockdown in Maharashtra. Not sure what's happening in other part of the country, but I'm sure. I think Aditya is also there is a lockdown in Bombay. Aditya.
Yes, yes, there is. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, Aditya, the format of the show is very simple. We invite domain experts like you. We try and understand what's happening in the industry. We'll also try and read your mind in terms of how do you look at healthcare as an industry. Last year, we saw a lot of stocks participating in, particularly from healthcare industry. Some of them have doubled, some of them have tripled also. So
Indeed.
I keep getting a lot of feedback from my investors, and they're all curious to know, is this the time to book profits in the industry? I mean,
Right.
particularly in healthcare or pharma, or it's a time that you should hold on to it and you see more upsides coming in. So
Sure.
before we start the session, let me quickly introduce the group first. So Incred as a group was started by Mr. Bhupender Singh. He had 16 years of stint with Deutsche long back, and he was a co-head for investment banking and their security business. And then they started their Incred group in India. They have many verticals. So they are into NBFC, they are into asset management business, they are into wealth management, investment banking in India. Particularly the asset management business is something which is now they've started focusing on. Minal Singh has joined them as a CEO and CIO from ICICI. He was a deputy CIO at ICICI Mutual Fund for good amount of time. So under his able guidance, now they are building up their presence in India as well. So I was interacting with Mr. Praveen Ladia, who has recently taken over as national head for Incred AMC. In fact, we had a chance to work together during a stint at Motilal Oswal, and this is how we got in touch with each other. So I would like to, before we start the session, I also take this opportunity to thank Praveen Ladia for helping us to organize this session. So the whole idea of organizing the sort of knowledge based session is to understand more from the industry expert. And today we've invited Aditya Khemka from Incred AMC. Aditya does not believe in jack of the all and mastery of the none. Therefore, right from the beginning of his career, he started focusing on healthcare as an industry, which is very close to his heart. And he had a long stint with DSP Mutual Fund, where he was the I would say rock star fund manager, and under his guidance and leadership, the fund delivered almost 40% alpha. I remember at one point of time. Then he went on to work with a couple of large organizations like Ambit Capital, and they are very strong on the institutional side. Then they worked with Nomura. He also had a chance to work with Lemon, I think, for quite some time, and he managed to look after both India and US markets per se for healthcare. He also managed to look after Latin America. So Aditi, you have a good amount of experience in the healthcare industry per se. So we thought you would be the right person, because a lot of investors are curious to know what's happening in this industry. We see good number of stocks really doubling up, tripling up, and they continue to deliver good returns. But Aditya, one observation is that if you look at particularly last decade, or more than 15 years, 20 years of history of pharma and healthcare in India, this sector looks to be a very contrarian in terms of the performance. We saw a lot of roller coaster ride, particularly in this industry. For example, you invest in any pharma company and suddenly you see any FD observation coming in, and then suddenly you see that stock is not delivering returns for long period of time. So for example, Sun Pharma, which was doing very well at one point of time, and it ended up delivering almost negative return between 2000 17, 18 and 19. Today, we want to understand basics from you first, because there are a lot of investors who have joined for the first time, and they would like to know more from you in terms of what's happening. A, B is if you could also throw some more lights in terms of basics of the industry before
Sure.
we get on to the outlook of the equity market. So over to you, Aditya. Thank you for joining in.
Thanks, Vikash. And that was a quite an elaborate introduction. And thanks everyone else for joining in. I know it's a Saturday afternoon and I have a running nose. So sorry if I keep wiping my nose, just pardon me for
Yeah, that's okay.
that. So, okay. So let me sort of share a slide, a couple of slides with you. I think,
Sure.
a lot of the questions that you asked, Vikash, we have already answered in our slides.
Okay.
So I will take you through the journey of healthcare, and I'll take you through what really the industry is. I think people don't understand the industry very well, and which is where a lot of these questions are coming from. So I will try to address that primarily. And
Sure.
then we will come down to answering the question of whether it is still a good investment opportunity, whether we still invest in healthcare or should we book profits, right? That's the
Sure.
conclusion of my presentation, right?
Sure.
The Incred Group, as you already introduced to the audience, Bhupinder Singh is the founder and CEO. He is ex-Deutsche. And the group mentor is Anshu Jain, who is ex-CEO of Deutsche Bank. Um, from the AMC perspective, the chairperson designate is Punita Kumar Sinha. She is very well known in the industry for her experience with BlackRock, for her experience with other, marquee financial services companies. She's also on the board of many listed companies like Lupin and Infosys, and she's also on the board of the CFA Institute. Mrinal Singh is the CEO CIO. He is ex ICICI Prudential, as many would know. He used to actively manage 25,000 crores of AUM when at ICICI Prudential. Now coming to the Indian healthcare opportunity, and you spoke about the roller coaster ride of healthcare. So let's talk about that a little. FY9 to 15 was a golden run for healthcare sector as a sector. If you see from FY9 to 15, each and every year the BSE healthcare index outperformed the Nifty each and every year. Some year the outperformance was as much as 45%, like in FY15. Some year it was as low as 5%, but it was outperforming each and every year. Then there were 4 years of reversal, where basically each and every year the BSE healthcare index underperformed the Nifty. Now, some year the underperformance was as high as 24%. Some year the underperformance was as low as 5%, but there was underperformance every year. Now, for the past 2 years, again, the healthcare index has started outperforming the Nifty, and this outperformance is very likely to continue. Now, let me talk about why. Now, you spoke about, you guys wanted some insight on what is healthcare and, what is pharma. Just to explain the industry briefly to you. So, there are basically 5 components in healthcare. Okay. The first component in healthcare is the generic business that these companies, pharma companies, do when they sell their products in US. Now that business is basically like a steel business. It's a commodity business. Why? Say there is a patient in US, he has fever, he goes to the doctor writes a prescription saying paracetamol. Now that patient comes to the pharmacy, says, I want paracetamol. The pharmacy will say, okay, I have 5 different paracetamols, one manufactured by Dr. Reddy's, one by Sun Pharma, one by Lupin, one by Cadila. And which one would you like to buy? So in the patient's head, he's buying paracetamol. He doesn't really care who has manufactured it. So therefore, next question he asks is, what is the price of paracetamol, right? And then the pharmacist will tell him the price of each of these products. And then more often than not, the patient will end up choosing the product with the least price, correct? So therefore, it becomes like a commodity market where whoever is able to price the product the lowest is able to sell the maximum volume. But because you are pricing the product the lowest, the margin of the product will also be the lowest for you because you are selling it at the lowest price. So it becomes a commodity market. Think of it as a steel market or as copper market or as aluminum market. There is no difference between steel produced by one producer and the other producer, right? It's just about who is pricing it at what price and therefore who's going to sell how much, correct? So in this market, therefore, in any commodity market, what is important is demand and supply. Am I right? Now, if the demand is above supply, if this is the supply and if this is the demand, the pricing is going to be good and everybody is going to make very high amount of profit. Correct? Similarly, if pricing and demand are almost similar in terms of quantity, then nobody is going to make any huge profit, but nobody is going to make a significant loss. At the same time, if the supply is above demand, then everybody is going to sell at very cheap prices and people may not be making any decent profit at all, right? That's what happens in commodity markets. That's exactly how the US and the Western European markets behave for pharma companies. They are all commodity markets where you're not allowed to brand your products, and therefore the patient basically ends up buying the product which costs him the least. Okay. Now, what is changing in this market? So today, many of Indian pharma companies actually don't make a decent profit in the commodity markets like US and Western Europe. Now, think about it. We are globally, Indian pharma companies are globally the cheapest producers of finished dosage formulation products in the world. We are the cheapest producers. Nobody competes with us, including China. China is a customer. China buys from us the finished product. They don't compete with us. And US, Europe obviously have long sort of given up the battle with Indian pharma companies. Today, Indian pharma companies in US have got a 50% market share, 50% market share. This was about 6% back in 2006. This market share was 6%. Today it is 50%. So over 15 years, we have driven our market share from 6% to 50%. And we have been able to do that. We have been able to do that because we have been able to price our product far, far lower than our competitors. And therefore, everybody is buying our product. Correct? But the pricing has become so bad today in the US market that despite being the cheapest cost producers, many of these Indian pharma companies aren't making a decent profit in the US market. Now, when that happens, right, what is the competition facing? If we are not making any profits, despite being the cheapest producers, our competitors who are American, European, African, their cost is 20, 30, 40% higher than us. But their selling price is the same as us because it's a commodity market. You can't charge a different price. So what is happening to them? They are bleeding big, no? They are making huge losses. As a result, what we have seen in the last 12 to 18 months, 4 to 5 American pharma companies have filed for bankruptcy. Okay, they have Aceto Pharma, Lannett, Mallinckrodt, Rising. They've all filed for bankruptcies. Why are they filing for bankruptcy? Because they can't survive. They can't survive in the current environment. At the current pricing, they're not even manufacturing their cost of product. They're not even recovering their cost of production. And if they're not even recovering their cost of production, why would they stay in business, right? You're not in business to make losses. Am I right? So therefore, now the demand supply gap that was existing is slowly closing down. Supply is coming down. Why is supply coming down? Because the competitors are purely out of business. They can't sell these products at such bad prices. We can still sell it and we can still sustain. They can't sell it and sustain. So they are basically reducing the supply. Now, when supply reduces and demand stays where it is, what happens to pricing? Pricing begins to improve. Simple economics, simple basic economics, right? So that is how the US market is improving. The other thing which is happening in the generic segment is the China market. Now, to give you some history, in India, in 1980s, MNC pharma companies used to have 90% market share, 90% market share. Today in India, MNC pharma companies have 10% market share. So over the last 4 decades, Indian pharma companies have pushed out the multinational pharma companies like Glaxo, Pfizer, and we have reduced their market share to 10%, which used to be 90%. In China today, the market share of the same MNC pharma companies is 85%. Now, the reason why it is so is because China has not allowed Indian companies to enter the Chinese pharma market. And the local domestic industry of the Chinese government, the China pharmaceutical industry, they have not been able to push out the MNC companies at all. They have not been able to compete with the MNCs, which is why the MNCs still control 85% market share. Now, the problem with that is when MNCs have such a large market share, they demand extraordinarily high prices for their products. And therefore, the healthcare bill of the Chinese government is very, very high. And now they have gotten tired of paying that high bill. Now they have opened doors for Indian pharma companies. And now Indian pharma companies have started filing products in China, where they are saying, look, we already have the product. We already sell it in US, we sell it in India, we sell it in 200 geographies. There is no additional cost for us for selling the same product in China. But if I can sell the same product in China, I can get additional revenue. And that will drive operating leverage in the segment. Okay, because you're not incurring extra cost, you're just getting extra revenue for your efforts. And which is where operating leverage will come in. So this is the first layer of the business. This is the generic business, which is basically like a commodity business, not a great business to be in, but it is a business where you are most competitive when it comes to the cost of the product. And therefore, you will be the last man standing. No matter what the price of the product, you will be the last man standing amongst all your competitors, right? The second business that Indian pharma companies do is the branded generic business, is this business, branded generic. This business is characterized by high margin, low capex, and very steady cash flow. So this is our India business, for instance, the domestic business, right? Here, where a patient has fever, he goes to the he goes to the doctor. The doctor writes a prescription saying crocin. He doesn't write paracetamol. He writes crocin or he writes Calpol. So now when the patient goes to the pharmacy, he's just buying crocin or Calpol, no matter what the price of the product, right? So the brand is what protects the pricing of the product. The brand is what sells the product, not the price point, correct? So therefore, In the Indian market, it is more like an FMCG business for Indian pharma companies. We are not manufacturers here. We don't really care if we manufacture the product or not. We are branding companies here. We are branding and promotion companies like HUL is, like PNG is. The brand we promote, we advertise, not to the direct patient, we advertise to the doctor. And the doctor writes a prescription and the prescription sells the product. Correct? So here in this business, not only our margins are significantly high, because whoever has the bigger brand can create his own price and the product will still sell. As long as the doctor is writing Crocin and Crocin is available for 50 rupees a strip, you will not really go and buy Dolo, which is the same product, but at 20 rupees a strip. But you're still buying Crocin, right? So therefore, the pricing of the product doesn't really depend on the competition that much. It depends on the brand of the product. And if the brand is established and solid, then you will always have customers for your brand. So it's a high margin business, very high ROE, very steady cash flows, and no need for reinvestment because you don't have capacity. Where do you reinvest? You're getting all your production third party manufactured. You are just branding and selling. So where do you reinvest cash? You can't reinvest that cash. So you just make a lot of cash and you don't have any place to reinvest it. A great business. Now, the third business that these companies do is the API business. This is a raw material. API is active pharmaceutical ingredient. These are raw materials which are used to manufacture the finished product. Correct? Now, in this business, China is the like God. Okay, so they manufacture, they sell products worth $40 billion globally. India sells API worth $4 billion in the export markets. Now, what is changing here? In the cost of API manufacturing, right? 20% of your cost of manufacturing is pollution control. Now, China never had pollution control, right? Because they created these industrial parks where there was no pollution control and all these plants were polluting as much as they want. And they were producing those APIs, which Indian companies were also producing. But we had pollution control and they never had it. So their cost of production was automatically 20-30% cheaper than our cost of production because of no pollution control. Now, all the Chinese provinces are implementing anti-pollution norms. Now, when they're implementing that, their cost of production is going up. Excuse me. So their cost of production is now going up. Now, when their cost of production is going up, that cost arbitrage between buying from China versus buying from India is narrowing down. Moreover, API, Chinese companies have defaulted twice in supplying APIs now. Once they defaulted back in 2017-18 when the implementation of pollution norms began. Two, they defaulted when COVID happened. Everybody knows that Wuhan was the epicenter of COVID virus. Very few people know that Wuhan is also the manufacturing hub of API in China. So therefore, the first industry which got disrupted because of COVID virus was actually the API production industry in China. And that basically caused a lot of pain and suffering to their customers. Now, the same customers who are buying, let's say 100 out of 100 tons from China are saying that, look, first of all, now the Chinese product is not very cheap compared to the Indian product. It is slightly cheaper. And China has already defaulted twice on its supply agreements. So I don't want to buy the entire 100 tons from China. I want to continue to buy, let's say 50, 60, 70 tons from China, but the balance quantity I want to buy from India so that I can de-risk my supply chain, so that I can be sure of supply. Even if it's at a slightly higher price, I'm okay with that. Correct? Now, when that happens, imagine China is $40 billion in size, India is $4 billion in size. If China loses as much as 10, 20% of their market share, which is not going to be big, it's a very small number, 10, 20% market share, Indian revenue can double or treble because of gaining that share from China. Which is why you said now many stocks multiplied. They multiplied because of this, because these stocks are in this segment where their revenues are actually going to multiply in the next 2-3 years because of them getting so much demand from China. And they can just substitute China in those products. It's already happened in chemical companies. If you see a lot of chemical company stocks, you will see those stocks are multiplied over the last 3-4 years. It has just begun in API companies. That multiplication has just begun. So we are in the early stages of that, the API company journey. So this industry is also going to become extremely profitable. It's already become profitable, and it's going to become more and more profitable as more and more demands migrates from China to India. The fourth part is the hospital segment. Now, the hospital segment is a great business, and it's a very, very misunderstood business. It's not capital intensive. It used to be capital intensive 20 years back when all of the hospitals wanted to own the land and building on which they are making the hospital facility. Today, all hospital companies want to lease the land and building. So it's like the business where it's like the retail business, like Aditya Birla Fashion Retail or like Trent, where you just lease in the land and building, you open your own showroom, and you let the customers come. Now in hospitals, what happens is when you create new capacity, your new capacity takes 2 to 3 years to break even. Okay, because Sara cost to upfront hai, all the cost is upfront, but the patient takes time to come. It comes slowly, right? So for the first 2 3 years, when you've created huge capacity, you make losses in the new capacity. Slowly, those losses become profit, and then when they become profit, when the beds mature more and more, they become highly profitable. Okay. Now, many of these hospital chains have created a lot of new capacity in the last 4 5 years. So today in their P&L, there's a lot of losses which is coming from these new capacities. But going forward, many of them are not going to incur any material capex over the next 3 to 5 years. So they will not have any incremental new losses coming from new capex. Their current losses will become to narrow and actually become profitable, as time passes, as the beds mature. So overall, their P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, everything will start looking better and better. And that is where these stocks will start doing better and better going forward. In diagnostics, it's a simple business. It's a branded business again. 10 years earlier in India, nobody used to care whether we are going to a Sunflower Diagnostics or a Purnima Diagnostics. Nobody used to care so much. Today, these diagnostic companies have spent so much money in branding that everybody's become aspirational even in diagnostics. Everybody wants to go to an SRL, a Fortis, or a Dr. Lal or Metropolis, right? Now that aspiration is driving the market share gain for these chains. So these chains, which are only 15% of the market, organized market is only 15, unorganized is 85. Now this 15% market is actually growing at 15 to 18% in top line. And the unorganized market is also growing at 6 to 7% top line. So over the next 20 to 30 years, the organized market will continue to grow and take share from the unorganized players in the diagnostic segment. So these are the 5 primary segments in pharma, if you ask me. Contract manufacturing is something which is akin to API production. So it's sort of, linked to that. Now coming to, the biggest arbitrage in pharma. Okay, so if you look at the track record of my previously managed fund, the DSP Healthcare Fund, I don't know if I have it in this slide. If I do, I'll show you just for 1 second. And then I will take you back to this original slide. Just give me a second. Yeah. So this is the fund I used to manage, Vikash. Now this fund, the DSP Healthcare Fund, was the best performing asset class in India in 2020, regardless of MF, PMS, AIF, regardless of sectoral, non-sectoral, equity, non-equity, hybrid, whatever you can think of, gold, non-gold, commodity, non-commodity. This fund was the best performing asset in India in 2020. Okay, it gave a 74% return in one financial year, in one calendar year. Okay, now many people congratulate me, Aditya, well done, you have managed a product which gave the best return in a given year. I take that congratulations with heart. I love it when people congratulate me on such an achievement. But the bigger achievement people miss, Vikash. People miss the bigger achievement. The bigger achievement is not the 74% return. The bigger achievement is generating that kind of return with the lowest volatility. Highest return with the lowest volatility, because that is the achievement. Look at the Sharpe ratio of that product versus the Sharpe ratio of other products in the same segment. Okay. Now the Sharpe ratio is what? The Sharpe ratio tells you units of reward per unit of risk, right? Now this product had a 1.8 Sharpe ratio, whereas other products had 1.4, 1.1, even 0.6, correct? Now, we all like to believe markets are efficient, don't we? Because if markets are efficient, you should not be able to generate higher return with lower risk. To generate higher return, you need to take higher risk. Am I right? That is what you tell your clients, don't you? कि सर इक्विटी में पैसा डालेंगे, रिस्क हाई है लेकिन रिटर्न भी हाई है. Correct? What I am showing you that this product has demonstrated over 20-24 months that you can generate higher returns with lower risk. You can actually generate better than fixed income returns with lower than fixed income risk. How is that possible? It's possible because of inefficiency in the market. What is inefficiency in the market? Let me talk to you about that. And I think that will be my key point in this webinar to our clients. I'll just talk to you about that. So people don't understand pharma companies. Okay. I told you that there are, 3 different businesses within pharma. There is the US business, which is more the commodity steel business. There is the India business, which is more the FMCG business. And then there is the API business, which is more the raw material manufacturing business. Correct? Let's take example of this pharma company. The pharma company reported 100 crores of sales, 22 crores of EBITDA, 9.5 crores of PAT, all on 100 crores of capital employed. So 10% ROE, right? Now, when an average layman financial analyst looks at these numbers, he says, okay, 9.5 rupees of PAT. So let me value this pharma company at 20 times, right? 10% return on equity is not great. Okay, return on equity. So 20 times 9.5, 190 rupees should be the price of the stock. This is how we all look at all pharma companies that exist today, right? Sun, Lupin, Dr. Reddy, Cadila, Cipla. We all look at them in this fashion. It is absolutely absurd to look at them in this fashion. It's wrong. It's mathematically wrong. Okay, I'll tell you why. If I were to deep dive into this pharma company's numbers, what I realize is that out of this 100 rupees of revenue, they make 30 rupees of revenue in India business. This is the FMCG business, right? So margins are awesome. They make 12 rupees of EBITDA on 30 rupees of top line. There is no depreciation because there is no fixed asset. What do you depreciate? There is interest income because you have cash generation, but you cannot redeploy the cash. So there is interest income. And then there is tax. So 30 rupees top line, 12 rupees EBITDA, 11 to 12 rupees PAT. All on a capital employed of 25 rupees. So the ROE is almost like 45-50%. That is the ROE of this one segment. Okay. The second business that we do, US business, yes, top line is higher. We make 50 rupees of top line. But look at the margin. It's 5 rupees. 10% EBITDA. Okay. And on top of that, we are manufacturers in the segment, as I told you. So there is huge amount of fixed assets. So there's a huge amount of depreciation. Then many of these companies have taken debt to do acquisitions in this segment. So there is an interest cost. So net in this business, many of these companies actually make a loss despite having a capital employed of 50 rupees, which is a 12% negative ROE. And then the third business, the API business, which is just recovering because of the China factor. Today we do 20 rupees of revenue, 5 rupees of EBITDA, 4 rupees of profit, and a 15-16% ROE. If you add the three Vikas, you get the final column. Okay, these are the three components basically. Now, when you are valuing this company at 20 times 9.5 Vikas, what you're doing is you're valuing the US business 20 times minus 6. Am I right? Now, when you do that, when you value a loss at a multiple Vikas, mathematically, what are you assuming? You're not making this assumption consciously. You're making this assumption subconsciously. The assumption that you're making is that this business, which is making a loss today, will make losses for the next 20 years. And the loss will actually keep growing as a loss. Minus 6 will go to minus 7, then minus 8, then minus 10, 12, so on and so forth. That is the implication of giving a multiple to the loss, right? That is the present value, correct? Now that assumption is never ever going to come true, Vikash. No company ever will do a business which will give them losses for 20 years and the losses will keep growing, right? Any company does a business to make a profit, right? No businessman will ever do this business for 20 years and continue to make losses for 20 years. No, it's never going to happen, correct? Now, therefore, what will happen? Now, this businessman who currently runs this US business, which makes a 6 rupee loss, he has two choices, right? Choice number one, try to convert this minus 6 to a plus 6. Somehow, increase pricing, change product portfolio, reduce manufacturing, do what you have to do. But change this minus 6 to plus 6. Mind you, even at plus 6 in the US business, he is making only 12% ROE, right? So it's not extraordinary ROE that I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for a very normal ROE of 12%. If this minus 6 becomes a plus 6, how much does this total earnings go to? From 9.5, how much is the total earnings going to become? 21.5. There is a 12 rupee delta between minus 6 and plus 6. Correct? So this will become 21.5. His ROE will become 21%. And the stock will obviously be at a different orbit altogether. It will be nowhere close to 190 rupees. You'll make a huge amount of money. Correct? But that is an optimistic assumption. Not every entrepreneur will be able to turn around a loss-making business to make it profitable. What will the other entrepreneur do? He will have to shut down the business, right? He cannot make losses forever. He will not make losses forever, right? If he shuts down the business, what happens, Vikash? Look at this table, the same table as above, but assuming that the US business has been shut down, right? Your 100 rupee revenue goes to 50, 22 rupee EBITDA goes to 17, but look, your 9.5 rupee profit goes to 15.5. More importantly, your 10% ROE goes to 31%. Now, if I were to give you these numbers, Vikas, and if I were to tell you to value this company, you are not going to value this company less than 25 times, are you? Now, if you value this company at 25 times 15.5, what you get is 390 rupees of stock price, which is more than 100% upside. So just by avoiding the mathematical crime of giving a loss a multiple, I can see many, many pharma companies where there is more than 100% upside today. Okay. Now I'll skip a few.
I have a question here before you.
Yes, Vikash. Go ahead.
So Aditya, what is the logic? I mean, what is the rationale why US business is not allowing these companies to increase their margins?
No, so it's not. So US market is a free market. Okay. You're allowed to price your product the way you want to price it. It is the competition which suppresses pricing. Now, because this market was immensely profitable, the US market was immensely profitable back in 2015-14. Okay. Now, because it was so profitable, when in a commodity market with no barrier to entry, you make very high profits. What happens next, Vikas? You get a lot of competition, right? Now, pharma is a market where competition takes 2 to 3 years to come in only because of the regulatory barriers. You have to make a facility, you have to file for products, you have to get FDA approvals, then you launch the product. It takes 2 to 3 years to come to the market. Now, by the time these competitors enter the market, they realize that there's so much competition that came into the market that they had to destroy the price just to survive. Now, because they destroyed the price, the profit also got destroyed. Because see, pricing में क्या होता है? Every time your price drops, your profit drops by as much as your price drops. Your cost doesn't change, no? Just because the price of the product came down, your cost is not going to change, no? Your cost is going to be the same. So pricing works both ways. When it goes up, it takes the profit up with it. When it comes down, it takes the profit down with it. Now, the reason why the price became so bad is because too many people came down to do that business. And there isn't space for so many people in that business. If so many people do that business, then they will make losses, and which is what is happening today, and which is why now these people have started filing for bankruptcies because they can't survive in this market environment. And as I said, because the supply is here, the demand is here, the pricing is very bad. Not that the supply is reducing, the pricing will begin to improve, right? The best way to look at it is a chart I have where there is, so this is a chart of drug shortages, Vikash. Okay. Now, drug shortages are the primary indicator of demand and supply gap, right? Look at how drug shortages are moving up in the US. Why are drug shortages going up, Vikas? Because the pricing is so bad that people don't want to supply the drug. Now, when you don't supply and there is a shortage, what happens to pricing? It will start to go up, no? They want the drug, no? End of the day, they can't let the patient die, no? And because shortages are going up, because supply is coming down, pricing is improving. And because pricing is improving, that -6%, that -6 rupees of EPS will slowly become zero and then become profitable also.
So
Just
can we
because
also
pricing.
say that the big becomes bigger here than in this case? Because the number
Not
of
necessary. Actually, not necessary. It's not like Asian Paints. It's not one market. So unlike, paint industry, where it's just one industry, pharma is 4,000 industries. There are 4,000 molecules in pharma. And each and every pharma company chooses which of these 4,000 molecules they want to be present in, right? So Sun Pharma, which is the largest Indian pharma company, is present in 400 molecules out of 4,000, right? Now, Ipca, which is a very small company, is present in 20-30 molecules out of the 4,000, and it is not competing with Sun Pharma on any molecule, right? Because there is no overlap between their product basket. So you can choose your market in pharma. You can clearly choose where you want to be present because there are 4,000 molecules. You don't need to be present across all 4,000. You don't need to sell everything. So paint क्या एक ही industry है, pharma क्या 4,000 industries है, bunched into one. Aripiprazole is one industry, pantoprazole is one industry, paracetamol is one industry, Metrogyl is one industry. These are all different industries, and I can pick and choose where I want to go, right? So ये जो shortages आ रहे हैं अभी, these shortages are not coming across the 4,000 molecules. They are coming in certain molecules, right? In those molecules, if I now go, there will be price inflation. I can increase prices because there is shortage, and I can make a huge amount of profit in those molecules, right? Have I answered your question, Vikas?
Yeah, very well.
Great. Now, coming to what should we do in pharma today, right? That is the most important question. So people are saying stocks have doubled, trebled, some stocks have gone up. Let's take an example, no? Sun Pharma, right? Again, very well-known company. It was 1,200 rupees a share in 2015. For that one day, Sun Pharma was the most valuable company in India, and Dilip Sanghi was the richest man in India. 12 rupees per share for Sun Pharma. From 1,200, it went to 300, Vikas. How much is the decline in stock? 75%. From 300, it has come back to 600. How much is the increase in stock? 100%.
100%.
So in your mind, you are being told that the stock which had declined 75% has gone back up 100%. The stock is expensive. But look at it, 1200 ka stock 600 pe hai. Right? These are mathematical illusions in your head because you focus on absolute values and percentages. Okay. So which is why always every expert tells you to look at multiples. If you were to follow this logic, right, then in Bajaj Finance, how are you putting money? It was 1,700 6 months back, na, March 20. Mein. Today it is 5,200, na, 3 times. How are you comfortable putting money in Bajaj Finance? Right, by that logic. But वहां पे आप उस लॉजिक से नहीं सोच रहे हो, यहाँ पे आप उस लॉजिक से सोच रहे हो. So it doesn't make sense to me. Always look at multiples, right? So if I look at multiples, Vikas, on this particular chart that I'm trying to show, the pharma industry over last 12 years has traded at a 35% premium to the broader market. Okay, just before this rally began, we had gone down to 0% premium. कि ये कभी जाना ही नहीं चाहिए था वहां पे. The fact that we went to 0% premium itself was a great opportunity. Okay, and from there, after the rally, we have come back to that 31-32% premium, which we have always traded at for the last 12 years. So we are not expensive by any stretch of imagination. We are purely trading at our average multiple, right? Now, any stock price has two components, multiple and earnings. What is the multiple we discussed is average. Earning, let's talk about it. What is the best barometer of earning? Return on equity is the best barometer of earnings. Now, our average ROE for the industry has been about 14-15% over the last 12 years. The peak was 24, the bottom was 8. We have just seen the first leg of recovery from the bottom. Right? Going forward, because none of these pharma industry companies are going to invest more, right? Abhi loss was ban raha hai, US mein kaun invest karega? Koi nahi invest kar raha hai. Now, if you're not investing in that market anymore, and your earnings will continue to grow, your ROE will continue to improve only, right? Now, as your ROEs continue to improve, the multiple can either stay where it is or it can further improve. It cannot go down, no? In which industry have you seen that the ROE improves and the multiple goes down? It doesn't happen with any industry, correct? So if your ROE continues to improve, your multiple stays where it is, then as an investor, for you, the return on the stock is equal to the earning growth. Na? If the multiple stays where it is. If the multiple also re-rates, bonanza for you. You make earning growth plus multiple re-rating. Correct? So to my mind, there is no doubt that there is still a very, very good time to invest in pharma because we are trading at an average multiple. We are recovering off the bottom of earnings and the earnings will continue to recover. There is no doubt in that. So the best time to invest in a sector is when valuations and earnings both are at the bottom, which was the case a year back in pharma. The worst time to invest in a sector is for pharma, which was 2015, when the multiple was at its peak and the earning was at its peak, right? The second best time to invest in a sector is when the earnings and multiple both are at its average, which is where we are today. So I don't think today we need to be scared of investment in pharma. I think this is a space which requires more investment today from investors. I'll just talk to you now briefly about our investment process, and then we'll be open the floor for question and answers.
Yeah, so just a small announcement. So in case our investors have any questions, so they can type in their questions in Q&A box, and then we'll start shooting these questions to Aditya.
Sure, perfect. So a lot of people talk a lot about buying decisions, and buying is over talked. To be honest, I just simply summarize my buying decisions into three parts. I want to buy great businesses at close to fair value, simply because great businesses are rarely ever available at discount. So a Dr. Lal or a Metropolis or a Abbott India, you will rarely ever get these companies at a fair discount. You'll always get them at a fair value. So I want to buy these businesses at fair value, but not extremely rich valuations. I want to buy good businesses at discounts. So, companies like Ipca, Indoco, JB Chemicals, these are all good companies, and you will often get them at discounts because of the various reasons why markets misread these companies so much. So you'll always get them at good discounts. So very good to buy. And you always want to avoid bad businesses. We never want to buy bad businesses at all, no matter at what the valuation is. Selling decisions. So we sell companies only on two occasions. Number one, when the stock runs up way too much versus our expectation. So the risk reward becomes unfavorable. Then we want to sell the stock and we want to replace it with something else where the risk reward may be better. Secondly, when there is a breakdown in our investment thesis, if we expected the stock to do ABC, they go out and do XYZ, then sell. We have gone wrong. Book the loss or profit or whatever it is. Get out of the stock. Go into somewhere else where you have more predictability, right? Sizing decisions are also important. If you see at our portfolio, we have 20 stocks, but top 5 stocks are 40% weight and bottom 15 stocks are 60% weight. So, the allocation is based on conviction. If the upside is material, the downside is limited, we can really size up our positions. Some of our top holdings are 10% of our portfolio. And then we also want ample diversification so that the return reward of the profile of the portfolio is good for every investor, even the smallest investor. We value companies on 10 parameters. 5 of them are qualitative, 5 of them are quantitative. So, we look at ROIC versus WACC, we look at capital structure, cash flow adequacy, we look at debt covenants, we look at growth opportunity. And then qualitatively, we look at competitive advantages, we look at pricing ability, we spend a lot of time on management, we look at the character of the management, the alignment of the management's interest with minority shareholders, and we also look at the dependence of the business model on external variables. We we basically score each companies on these 10 parameters, and then we choose the companies in which we want to invest. These are just some of the examples. Your Torrent Pharma, your Ipca, your Divi's, your Ajanta, they score highest on our framework. And then we have other companies as well which score lower, and this is how we select companies in which we want to invest. This is our portfolio as of today. These are the top 10 holdings, and this is the performance of the portfolio, although it is almost only 1.5 months old now, the portfolio. And this is the market cap split of the portfolio. So as you can see, it's a multi-cap product with very high weightage to small and mid caps. The index has much higher large caps. The reason for that is most of the large caps are highly dependent on the commodity business, which is the US business. And we don't want to bet so much money on the US business, because end of the day, it's a commodity business, which is going to be very volatile. We want to have more and more companies in our portfolio where the FMCG part of the business, the quality of the cash flow is extremely sticky and good. And many of those businesses are actually small and mid caps in India. So very counterintuitively, right? In India, large cap pharma companies are actually more commodity and more vulnerable in terms of their cash flow. And the small and mid cap pharma companies are actually more branded and more sustainable and sticky in terms of their cash flow, which is a very counterintuitive thought. People generally think small and mid caps are more vulnerable. In pharma, it's exact opposite. Small and mid caps are actually more sticky, more sustainable. Large caps are more vulnerable. Best example of that, Sun Pharma. Used to be 1200, is today 600 after 7 years or 6 years, right? 50% decline after 6 years of the stock. And Ipca, which used to be 400, is today 2000. So 5 times in 6 years in the same time frame as Sun Pharma. And Ipca is 1/7 the size of Sun Pharma in terms of a company. Sun Pharma is 7 times larger than Ipca, right? So large is not safe in pharma. What is safe? You look at the cash flow, you understand the source of the cash flow. That tells you what is safe, not the size of the cash flow. The size of the cash flow tells you nothing. Yeah, so that's basically it from me. And Vikas, I'll be very happy to take questions.
Yeah, so before we move on to the questions, so one disclaimer here: whatever company names that Aditya talked about is a disclaimer that it's a part of the portfolio, and none of us hold that company in our personal portfolio. Okay, so we'll move to questions. Lot of questions. So
Yeah,
I
go ahead, shoot.
yeah, sure. All right. So can you share the latest PPT? So the PPT is already been shared. Why the stock price is assumed at 20 times the PAT in one of the slides?
No, so that was just an example we gave, that that is how people value pharma companies. They look at the total profit and they give the multiple to the total profit. Correct. Now that total profit includes a loss from the US type business, which people don't understand, but they are nevertheless valuing that loss at a multiple, and that creates opportunity for investors like us to buy those stocks and wait till the US business becomes profitable, or the company decides to shut down the US business. In both cases, as investors, we make a lot of money.
Yeah, there's one interesting question, Aditya, and right from the day one, it has been taught by a lot of industry stalwarts that you should only have diversified portfolio, and this is a very good question. He's saying that what percentage you should have it in pharma out of your 100 rupees of overall equity investment. So I think there's a case for the pharma to have it in the portfolio. So if you could throw some more lights on that.
Sure. So two things here, right? Very few people know this, Vikas, and I doubt even if you know this. There is 17-year data available on Bloomberg. 17 years of data for BSE Healthcare Index and for Nifty 50. 2004 से 2021 तक का data है. Over 17 years, the BSE Healthcare Index has outperformed Nifty 50 by a total of 57%, 57, which is an annualized outperformance of the healthcare index versus the broader market by 3%, annualized 3% outperformance, annual. So my question to your investing public and to every investor in the world is, why do you want to be tactical, or why do you think about it as a sectoral product? It is a sector where you have companies which are globally competitive, right? So let me give you an example what I mean by globally competitive. Indian pharma companies have 48% volume share in the US market. Which other sector do you know where Indian pharma companies or Indian companies have such a market share in US or any other geography? Is there any sector you know? No, no. IT and pharma, only two sectors where we can actually go out of our country and compete with global giants. No, correct? Can HDFC Bank get me 4 bank accounts in New York? If you are able to buy a 10 lakh rupee BMW, will you buy a 10 lakh rupee Maruti? No, na. These are all great companies within the Indian context because they are protected, by our laws, by our frameworks, by our regulators, right? What is the global trade war about? It is about these regulations only, right? People don't realize the kind of risk they run in their current portfolios, right? Your current portfolio is 40% financial services, where RBI is acting as a umbrella to the HDFC banks and the ICICI banks of the world, no? Right? ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank have the balls today to charge you if you go and deposit money in a branch other than your home branch. And they talk about digital banking, right? So your home branch may be some branch in Pune. And if you are in Mumbai and you're depositing cash into HDFC bank branch, right, they will charge you for that cash deposit because you're depositing cash into a branch. And they talk about digital banking. I mean, they are ages behind banks like Standard Chartered and Citi. Okay, if Standard Chartered and Citi, RBI allowed them to do whatever they want to do in India, no, there will be no customer left for HDFC Bank. Okay, there will be no customer left. But they are protected. And that kind of companies is 40-50% of your portfolio at the least. Okay.
Yeah, that is the index level itself. Yeah.
At the index level itself, right? So that is what you own today, right? You own companies which are so incompetent when compared to their global competitors, but they are doing well in India because they're protected. Whereas in this sector, you can own companies which are globally competitive. They don't require regulations to protect them. In fact, regulations, whenever they come, hurt us. They never protect us. Despite that, we are globally competitive. Correct? Which is why this sector creates that kind of alpha over 17 years. Okay, ये 1-2 साल का डेटा नहीं है, 17 साल का डेटा है. 17 years, this sector has created 57% alpha. And then people ask me, Aditya, when should I enter and when should I exit pharma? Why should you enter and exit pharma? You enter and exit financial services. Think about that. यहाँ कहाँ पे enter exit का बात है? There is no enter.
So the question is, I mean, during 2000 .com bubble times, nobody ever thought that TCS would be the one of the largest company in terms of market cap in 2017-18. So you think that the in our index, you think that any pharma company can become the biggest in terms of market cap 10 years down the line?
It did, no? Sun Pharma in 2015 was the largest company in your index. खाली होल्डिंग ज्यादा था प्रमोटर का, इसलिए इंडेक्स इज फ्लोट वेटेड, राइट? Index is float weighted. So Sun Pharma didn't become the largest weight in the index because the float was lower, but it was the highest market cap company in India in 2015, right? So potential to hai, wo forget about that. Potential is there. My point is not that. My point is, firstly, you should always be invested in a sector where you have global competitiveness and not local competitiveness. Point two, healthcare is not a sector. I just showed you there are 5 subsectors within healthcare. Right? What is the US market like? It's like the steel stocks. You're buying steel stocks. Before steel prices go up, you're buying steel stocks. What is the India business like? Like FMCG, like you're buying HUL, Avenue Supermarts, you're buying PNG, you're buying Indian FMCG companies in Indian pharma. What is API manufacturing? It's like chemical and industrial manufacturing. Like you're buying these chemical manufacturers, you're buying API manufacturers. What is hospitals? They are like retail companies. Like you're buying Trent, you're buying Aditya Birla Fashion, you're buying hospitals. What is diagnostics? They're like QSRs. Like you're buying Westlife, you're buying Burger King and all that. You're buying Dr. Lal, Metropolis. So in this one product, you're getting 5-6 different sectors. It's not a single sector product at all. Okay. People should understand the business model. You're buying 5-6 different sectors. You know what is the difference between a hospital and a Trent? Between an Apollo and a Trent, let's say. When you walk into a Trent ka Westlife showroom, right? You decide how much you spend, right, Vikash? एक ट्राउजर खरीदना है कि 4 ट्राउजर खरीदना है, एक शर्ट खरीदना है कि 2 शर्ट खरीदना है, is your choice. Once you enter Apollo Hospital na Vikas, you have no deciding power of how much you spend. Correct? And you may want to buy a Westlife shirt one day, you may want to buy a Louis Vuitton shirt the next day, but once you have gone into an Apollo, you're always going into an Apollo. You're not going anywhere else. Which is a better business model, Vikash? Think about it. Correct? So I'm saying you need to be invested. There is no right or wrong time to be invested in healthcare. You always should be invested. How much of your portfolio? Don't think of it as a sectoral fund. It is a multi-sector fund, multi-cap fund. Yes, you can invest 15, 20, 30, 40%, but don't think of it like you're putting money in one sector. You're not putting money in one sector. You're putting money in 5 sectors put together in one. That's what you're doing.
So the question is from Chirag. He's trying to know which are the other sector that you focus on in your PMS other than healthcare. So
No, so as of now, healthcare fund is purely focused on healthcare. So we will have diagnostics, hospitals, we will have API contract manufacturing companies, we will have domestic focused FMCG companies, we will have US focused commodity stock companies, we will have chemical companies, and we can also have insurance companies. So these are the companies we initially plan to have in the portfolio, which is what we own today, and that is how the portfolio is structured.
other thing is this particular question with regards to Sun Pharma. So Mr. Shah wants to know what was the reason for so much of decline in Sun Pharma. Was it overvalued?
No, it wasn't overvalued. No. See, Sun Pharma had 5,000 crores of cash flow. Okay. Out of that, 4,000 crores of cash flow was coming from the US market. Now, when you have 4,000 crores of cash coming from a commodity market, in that market, if competition goes up, pricing comes down, your profit will fall for no fault of your own. You have done nothing wrong. You are doing everything just the way you were doing earlier. It's just that the price fell down because somebody else entered the market. And which is why Sun Pharma stock fell. But which is why I'm saying index investing in pharma doesn't work, right? Because when you buy these big companies, you are buying those commodity companies which have so much exposure to these, commodity markets, right? And these commodity profits will always be very volatile depending on what's happening to the competition and supply in the market, correct? Which is why our product was so successful, because we bought those companies which are getting most of their cash flow from FMCG, and they're not vulnerable to competition. They are protected by brand.
The other thing, Aditya, I remember 2018-19 when these pharma companies were falling down. There were a lot of rumors around that these FDAs, they come in, they visit the plant and they make their observations, and Sun Pharma had more than 250 observations and blah, blah, blah. So what's happening to that now? Can you throw some more lights on the regulatory environment and how protected these companies post 2020 now?
Correct. So there is no short answer to this. To bear with me for the next 2-3 minutes. Okay. So I met a US FDA inspector in 2014. He was here in Mumbai to audit a plant near Mumbai. I asked him this question. I asked him, see, whenever you come to India, why is it that in Indian plants you have so much, problems? His response was this, and I quote him. He said, Aditya, from here, from the airport, now when I'm going to the plant, I'll be traveling about 80-90 kilometers, and I'll be crossing about 40 traffic signals, right? On each and every traffic signal I see, somebody or the else is breaking the traffic signal, right? So even before I enter the plant, I know that you Indians, you don't like to follow rules, right? So even before I enter the plant, I know you're not following my rules, correct? So therefore, the attitude of the inspector changes from whether there is a problem to where is the problem. He's pretty sure there is a problem at the plant. People are not following rules. So I asked him, so if we don't follow rules, does that mean the product that we make is poor quality? He said, no. The products that Indian pharma companies produce are the best quality in the world, and you produce it at the lowest cost, which is absolutely surprising. Okay, it's amazing. But you guys don't follow rules. We have a rule book. You have to follow the rule book. He says, the US FDA rule book says, do process A, B, C, D to achieve result E. Okay, do A, B, C, D and get outcome E. When he goes to the plant, he sees people have done A, B, D and still achieved D. They've just skipped the process C and they still achieved D. Now he's not okay with that. He's saying when you do A, B, C, D and achieve E, that is a science. When you do A, B, D and yet achieve E, that is an art. So he says, when I go to the plant, I see a bunch of artists. I don't see scientists. I want scientists in the plant. I want people who follow the process and get the outcome. I don't want people who do everything that they wish for and still get the outcome, right? So ये एक problem है Vikas. So the problem of the Indian mentality of jugaad, of ignoring rules or of improvising on rules, that does not go well with regulators. But having said that, if there are 8 or 9 large cap pharma companies in India, all 8-9 large cap pharma companies have had problem with US FDA. All 8-9 of them. Sun, Cipla, Lupin, Cadila, Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo, all of them have had problems with US FDA. Am I right? But there are 50 small and mid-cap pharma companies in India. Only 3 or 4 of them have had problems. Think about it. Very counterintuitive. Think about it. Larger companies have more money, better manpower. They should be able to tackle US FDA better. Smaller companies have lesser money, maybe poor quality manpower. Yet they are able to tackle US FDA. Why? Because it is a function of scale. If you have a plant which is producing 5 billion tablets, the scope for making errors, complex chemistry, the scope for making errors is just higher. And you end up making error one place or the else. If you have a small plant producing 10 crore tablets or 5 crore tablets, then the scope for making error is lower. The plant is smaller, the chemistry is simpler, right? Which is why our product again did well, because we had smaller companies who had lesser scope of falling in trouble with US FDA, right? And the other products, they had bigger companies and they had more companies which fell in more problem with US FDA. So the US FDA problem, I don't think is going to get solved. I mean, we are making progress. We are training our people to not do jugaad and all that. But at the end of the day, it is a process that will take time. Okay.
Sure.
The best way for you to sidestep this is to invest in smaller companies where they don't actually have these problems with US FDA. Because the plant is smaller, the chemistry is simpler, the production is lower. US FDA ko problem nahi hota hai wahan pe.
So there is one participant who is saying that Indians are known for jugaad.
That's true. Right. That's true.
Sure. So Niranjan wants to know that which are the US companies which are facing issues with regards to US, etc. So Niranjan, I would suggest you that you don't have to track this. You have to give the mandate to Aditya and let him manage and find out which companies are facing issues in US, etc. However, there's one more question. 1 second. Suppose I have invested in pharma, so when to exit? So I think Aditya has already explained, this is the sector where you need to be invested for a longer period of time. So you don't have to really worry about when to exit.
Actually, Vikash, for that one question, somebody asked, right, which are the US companies which are facing troubles, right?
Yeah.
Let me show you one thing. The largest generic company in US is Teva. Okay. And how much trouble they are in, you can understand by looking at their stock price. This is their stock price, Vikash. Did you look at the chart?
Yeah.
Their stock price used to be $80, is down to $11 after 5 years. This is the kind of stress the Indian companies' competitors are in, right? The second largest company in US after Teva for generic drugs is Mylan. This is the Mylan stock price, Vikash. It used to be $70. It's down $13. This is the kind of stress our competitors are in. When your competition is that kind of stress, supply is going to go down. They're not going to maintain supply because they need to survive. Yeah, go ahead, Vikash.
All right. So, Mr. Nitin Shah wants to know, can you give some examples of small cap pharma companies that you've invested in?
Yeah. So in our slides, we had that portfolio holding. So these are our portfolio holdings, right? So you can see Indoco Remedies is a 3,000 or 2,500 crore market cap company. Healthcare Global is again a 4,000 crore market cap company. JB is now 10,000 crores. Ajanta is 15,000 crores. Laurus is 16,000 crores. FDC is 2,000 crores. So we have a bunch of Unichem is 1,200, 1,300 crores, 1,500 crores, maybe. So you have a bunch of companies here which are small and mid cap.
So what's your take on the investment by big pharma in complex generics and biosimilars?
So both these segments, right? The problem I have is many of these large companies, right? They all say, I am trying to do complex generics. Okay, great. What is the benefit of doing complex generics? The benefit is that it's difficult to make. So therefore, there will be few players and therefore I'll be able to charge a decent price because competition will be limited. But the problem is when I go to 10 pharma companies and ask them, okay, what are you trying to do? All 10 tell me I'm trying to do complex generics. And if 10 of you are doing the same product, how is it complex? See, I as an investor don't care whether you are making an aeroplane or you're making a needle for the US market. All I care about is if you are making an aeroplane, how many others are making an aeroplane? And if you're making a needle, how many else are making a needle? The problem that is happening is because of this complex generic and biosimilar, 10 pharma companies are saying, I'm doing complex generics and biosimilar. Now, if all 10 of them end up doing the same products, nobody will make money. Nobody will make money because end of the day, जब supply का बात आएगा, there will be 10 people supplying the same product, no matter how complex or difficult it was. And if 10 people are supplying the same product, the pricing will not be good. It is a commodity market. You will have to compete with the other to get your share. And the only way to compete is by reducing price. Which is why I am not bullish. I am absolutely not bullish on complex generics and biosimilars. I think it's a huge waste of money that these pharma companies are doing. They are all realizing that as well, because now if you listen to most of these pharma companies commentary, even the larger ones, they have started talking about the Indian market. They started talking about acquisitions in India, right? They started talking about expanding Indian labor force, because they have also come to realize कि इतना पैसा बनने वाला नहीं है जितना ये लोग सोच रहे थे. It's not going to happen.
So Sandeep wants to know 20% weight in the pharma, healthcare, pharma, PMS makes sense for next 10 years. Is it advisable?
Look, I think 20% is reasonable. And I think 10 years is a reasonable time frame. So I think it's okay that way.
Ashish is asking that these FDA issues can be repeated in future as well. So
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
But it is the same companies which are vulnerable to it time and again. Look, Sun Pharma got first in trouble with Mohali, in Halol in 2014. In 2017, Halol was cleared. Then again, they fell into trouble with Halol. Cadila went into trouble with Moraiya in 2012. Came out in 2016. Then again went into trouble with Moraiya in 2018. ये जुगाड़ का problem तो होता रहेगा. I agree with you. That is why it is important that you don't invest in those funds where these companies are the larger weights, because these companies will keep having these problems. And then as investors will keep complaining that, pharma companies keep falling into trouble. Why do you need to invest in these companies? You don't need to invest in them, right? Just because they are large caps, just because they are large weight, doesn't mean I need to have them in my portfolio. I don't need to hug the benchmark. If I'm hugging the benchmark, how can I create alpha, right? I have to create alpha only when I'm away from the benchmark, which is what I did with my DSP product, and which is what we are doing with the Incred product as well.
All right. Yeah, somebody is asking for the recording of the webinar. So yeah, sure, Nitin, I'll share the recording with you. Some people are asking for a copy of presentation. So yes, post this session, we'll have this sent to you. The presentation which is shown by Aditya. And request for some stock specific feedback. Lincoln Pharma and Wockhardt.
Okay, so I have looked at Lincoln Pharma very, very briefly. I didn't understand what the company was trying to do. I think the promoter was confused as to what they want to achieve. So I never looked at them again in detail. So I don't really have a view today on Lincoln. Wockhardt is playing a very risky game. They're playing a all-in. So poker जो लोग खेलते हैं वो जानते हैं all-in का मतलब क्या होता है. So Wockhardt promoter has gone all-in on one couple of molecules that they're trying to develop. If they get the molecule right, it's going to be like 100-bagger from here, right? And if they get it wrong, the company is going bankrupt. There's no saving them anymore. They have basically put all their eggs in one basket. So the chance of them succeeding is like 5%. So if they succeed, you make a ton of money. If they fail, you lose all your money in that stock. So that's where Wockhardt is.
All right. Mr. Mayur wants to know how scalable the business model of Caplin Point. You see that the management is worth trusting.
No, the business model is scalable. I don't think scale is an issue. I think Caplin has ventured into the US market for injectables because Fidelity was willing to give them money to do that. I like Caplin. I think the promoters are great. The business model is very, very good. I only have doubts about their ability to, do the US business. They're trying to make injectables, and in injectables, the competition is coming from companies like Sun Pharma, Cadila, Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo. I don't know how they will succeed in that segment of their business. But that is only 10% of their business. The rest 90% of the business is still the Latin American, Central American business, which they're doing pretty well still. And they will continue to do well. So I like Caplin overall.
Last question from my end, and then we'll have closing remarks. So, an interesting question. Mr. Rohit wants to know, how do you see the future of biopharma compared with traditional, chemistry-based pharma? And is biopharma a threat to traditional chemical-based pharma industry? What's your sense?
So no, it is not a threat. It is a complementary product. See, if you look at biopharmaceutical products, they have come in more type of ailments like oncology, blood-related problems, immuno problems, where small molecules were not doing a good job in terms of healing the patient. So it's a complementary industry which has come up, and it is supporting the small molecule industry in taking care of more number of patients and more types of ailments. Biopharma companies will do very well going forward, but companies which are innovator biopharma companies will do very well. Biosimilars is different because they are making generics of existing biopharmaceutical products. Those companies, one will have to wait and see how they succeed. I'm not very sure they will succeed, and that is where my doubt lies, right? So I'm not so sure of biosimilars. I'm very bullish on biopharma companies which are trying to create new biopharmaceutical products, innovator products.
All right. So there were few participants who raised their hands, and I've allowed them to talk in case they want to talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Aditya, Mayur, Kuldeep, Ashish, Mridul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Vikas ji, this is Mayur Shah from Mumbai.
Yeah, Mayur.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vikas ji. I mean, in a nutshell, you have made this complex generics API make sound so simple and easy to understand. I really appreciate your time and efforts to educate us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And sir, we have just I have just invested in Kaplan and this Loris Labs. So basically, in our group, everybody was investing. So when I invested, we don't know any head or tail about pharma. So, but still now, I mean, Loris has given us good returns. The only thing is, sir, about Gland Pharma, which we have entered recently. I mean, it is a monopoly kind of business in injectables. So, just wanted to know, sir, injectables is the new form of medication now, because earlier everybody used to take tablets, and not what we are hearing now is that every medicine will be given as injectables going forward. So, is it the new form of medication, sir? Injectables? I mean,
The short answer is no. I'm sorry,
okay.
आपको short कर रहा हूँ.
Achha.
So Gland Pharma is a good company, but they are present only in the commodity type business, which is the US type business. उनका कोई कुछ नहीं है, okay? And जहाँ पे उनका presence है, so see, अगर आप किसी भी commodity business में invest करते हैं मयूर, आपको एक ही चीज देखना है कि उस business में what is the kind of supply that is going to enter the business. If there is going to be too much supply, तो prices टूटेंगे तो profit घटेगा. It's a very simple economic equation. इसमें कोई माताफोड़ी का काम नहीं है, ठीक है?
Right.
फार्मा क्या करता है? इंजेक्टेबल्स बनाता है. इंजेक्टेबल्स में अभी सप्लाई कहाँ से आ रही है? गिनते हैं हम लोग. सन फार्मा, कैडिला, लुपिन, डॉक्टर रेड्डी, ऑरबिंदो फार्मा, कैप्लिन, स्ट्राइड्स. मैं मतलब ये तो 7-8 कंपनियां मतलब मुझे जुबानी याद हैं, बट आई एम श्योर 10-20 नेम्स. ओके,
राइट.
तो ग्लैंड फार्मा जिस स्पेस में है मयूर, उस स्पेस में अभी इतनी सप्लाई आने वाली है कि वहां प्राइसिंग टूट जाएगी. अब वो हो सकता है 6 महीने में हो सकता है 3 महीने में हो सकता है 2 साल में हो, राइट? बिकॉज इंजेक्टेबल्स में यूएस एफडीए कंप्लायंस बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, बट एक बार कंप्लायंस आ गया, फिर आप मार्केट पे आओगे ना, आपने एसेट क्रिएट कर रखा है, यू विल लॉन्च द प्रोडक्ट ना. और आप अगर प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च करोगे तो आप मार्केट शेयर कैसे गेन करोगे? ग्लैंड से आप प्राइस काटोगे, तभी आपको मार्केट शेयर मिलेगा. कमोडिटी है ना, व्हाट अदर वे यू हैव टू गेन मार्केट शेयर?
True, sir. So thank you so much. Yeah.
तो मेरे पर्सपेक्टिव में आप लोग जब कोई भी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करें, 2 चीजों पे खास ध्यान दीजिए. पहला, उसका पैसा बनता कैसे है, कहाँ से पैसा आ रहा है, वो यूएस मार्केट में बेच रहा है, वो ब्रांडेड बेच रहा है, नॉन ब्रांडेड बेच रहा है, उस पर खास ध्यान दीजिए आप. अगर वो नॉन ब्रांडेड बेच रहा है तो आप इस चीज को समझिए कि वो जिस स्पेस में है वहां आज पैसा क्यों बन रहा है. Why is he able to report such high profits today, right? And can he continue to report such high profits, which will be a function of how much supply is going to come into that market.
Right. तो सर sorry, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
अभी मैं आपको क्रोसिन का एग्जांपल देता हूँ. क्रोसिन 40 साल पुराना प्रोडक्ट है, 40-year-old प्रोडक्ट. जब से क्रोसिन इंडिया में बिक रहा है उसके बाद से 100 ब्रांड्स और आ गए होंगे पैरासिटामोल के.
Yes, sir.
क्रोसिन आज
Yeah.
भी लीडर है और क्रोसिन का प्राइस आज भी 1 पैसा भी घटा नहीं है.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
तो ये कैसा क्वालिटी का रेवेन्यू है? ये हाई क्वालिटी रेवेन्यू है. इसको आप हाई
Right.
मल्टीपल दीजिए. ऐसी कंपनीज के साथ आप सालों साल इन्वेस्टेड रहेंगे, आपका पैसा कंपाउंड होता रहेगा.
Right. Right, sir. Right.
ग्लैंड जब एक इंजेक्टेबल बेच रहा है और
हाँ.
उस इंजेक्टेबल में कल को दो प्लेयर भी और आ गए ना, तो ग्लैंड का प्रॉफिट घट जाएगा.
घट जाएगा.
क्योंकि उसको प्राइस
Right.
काटना पड़ेगा अपना टू कम्पीट विद द न्यू प्लेयर्स. और प्राइस
Right.
काटना प्रॉफिट गिरेगा. सिंपल इक्वेशन.
सर और एक बात हो रही है ग्लैंड में कि उसका जो पेरेंट कंपनी है चाइनीज है, so he might open the market of China market to Gland.
True.
So उसमें कुछ पोटेंशियल हो सकता है ग्लैंड में.
सेम थिंग ना. सो ग्लैंड
हाँ.
चाइना में जाएगा, बट सन फार्मा, कैडिला, लुपिन ये भी चाइना जाएंगे.
ये भी जाएंगे. ओके. ओके.
So how
Right.
can make money? I mean, just because see ग्लैंड का पेरेंट चाइनीज है, सन फार्मा ने अपना चाइनीज सब्सिडियरी खोल दिया है. लुपिन एक
हाँ.
लोकल चाइनीज कंपनी के साथ जेवी कर रहा है.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
matter. Everybody has a
Right.
partner. Now the partner can be your parent, can be your subsidiary, can be a third party. Okay.
Right.
Doesn't
Right. So everything boils down to the prices, commodity prices, as you rightly said.
Exactly.
So basically, we should focus on, sir, who's into brand building, who's making their own drugs and selling as a brand. So I think so that we should focus on.
Absolutely. So Caplin में आपका आज तक पैसा बना, आगे भी बनता रहेगा. 90% of Caplin's revenue is branded. वो जो सेंट्रल अमेरिका और लैटिन अमेरिका बिजनेस करता है ना,
Right.
ब्रांड्स बेचता है. Now brands are what are able to keep his business growing, and they will continue to grow for the next 20 years. You don't have to worry about it.
Very true. Very true. Sir, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah. So Aditya, sorry for taking more time than what was initially discussed.
I'm absolutely fine.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions with regards to your portfolio, and some people wants to know. So what should be the realistic expectation in terms of returns from this portfolio that you're running?
Sure. I mean, that's a fair question.
Next 5 years time frame.
Yeah, look, so I told you ki, in terms of the valuation multiples, we are at the average multiples. And ROE is going to improve because nobody is investing more in the sector. So what is going to happen is my portfolio earning growth is about 15 to 17% over the next 2 years. Now, if the portfolio earnings grow at 15 to 17%, assuming that multiples don't re-rate, your portfolio return should be 15 to 17%. And if multiples do re-rate, then you can get a higher return depending on how much multiples go up, which nobody can forecast, including me or you.
Yeah.
So the returns that I guide to investors is 15 to 17% because that is the kind of earning growth that I can see in the portfolio companies.
Yeah. And what would be the churning ratio like? How frequently you want to churn the portfolio?
So generally, if you look at the products that I have historically manufactured, mera single digit churn rate hai. I'm very lazy that way. Because when we buy companies, we do a lot of work before we buy a company. And we only churn after we realize we have gone wrong, right? So my DSP product had a churn rate of 8-9%, which means my average holding period is 11 to 12 years for a given stock, right? And I don't expect my churn rate will be anything different than that.
Yeah.
So you can assume between 8 to 15% at best.
The other thing is we also looked at that you have 50% in small cap at the moment and remaining 50. How frequently it is going to change, or it is basically an outcome and you will only focus on what you want to do in terms of.
Exactly. No, it is an outcome of the kind of company that I'm buying. Okay. मैं market cap पे focus करता ही नहीं. My focus is only on the cash flow and the quality of the cash flow. Company छोटी भी हो अगर cash flow is good and it's sustainable and it's sticky, it's branded, I'm going to buy it. I don't care about the size of the cash flow. So I will not buy a Sun Pharma because I feel too much of their cash flow comes from commodity. I don't care about the size of Sun Pharma. And I will buy more FDC, more Indoco, despite them being very, very small companies. Because most of their cash flow comes from the India business, which is again very sticky and sustainable. So, market cap is just an outcome here. I mean, that's not something I focus on.
So the question is, Aditya, so somebody said other day I was hearing that, Indian pharma companies have the potential to supply or play a very important role in global supply of medicine. So do you endorse this statement or how is it?
100%. India is known as the pharmacy of the world, by the way. And we are known as the pharmacy of the world because we supply to 200 countries in the world. 200 countries. Okay. And we have no competitors. Even China is our customer. So there is no competitor that we have. So Indian pharma companies are already a pivotal, in terms of global supply chain in pharmaceuticals. We are already there. It's not a question of forecast. It's a fact. We are there. आज अगर इंडियन फार्मा कंपनीज बंद कर दे सप्लाई चेन अपना in export markets, people across the globe will die. Yeah, look at the vaccines ना, Pfizer, BioNTech, AstraZeneca, सारे तो यहीं आके बन रहे हैं. Even रशिया का वैक्सीन भी यहाँ आके बन रहा है. क्यों? Why are they manufacturing here? They can manufacture in US, but if they do manufacture in US, then their cost of production will be twice the cost of production in India, and then they will have to price it higher to make it a profit. And they don't want to price it higher because everybody in the world today needs that vaccine, right? Which is why they're manufacturing in India, so that they can price it reasonably and they can still make a profit.
Sure. So that brings me to second question. So this vaccine manufacturers in India, what do you think? What would be the quantum of PAT for these guys?
So vaccine manufacturing is a good business, but unfortunately, क्या है कि Serum Institute listed नहीं है, so we can't sort of play Serum Institute through vaccines for vaccines. And the other,
they're not making any profits. I think the Aadhar Poonawalla gone on record saying that we're just contributing back to the society in terms of giving back whatever we can.
I mean, look, you would expect Aadhar Poonawalla to say that. I think profit तो बना रहा है, अच्छा बना रहा है, लेकिन it's not that he's profiteering. ऐसा नहीं बोलूँगा मैं. He's making a reasonable profit. He's not supplying at cost. I don't believe so. But he is making a reasonable profit. But he's not profiteering out of a pandemic. That is for sure. He could have sold it for far higher prices than he's selling it for. Okay, so he's not profiteering. In terms of the other companies which are making vaccines, Dr. Reddy's will be making the Sputnik vaccine. Cadila is making its own vaccine. Smaller companies like Wockhardt, Panacea, they are also, making a few crore vaccines here and there. In सबको थोड़ा बहुत profit मिलेगा, but there is not a large profit in vaccine business because pricing is controlled. Okay, so you cannot price the vaccine at any price you want. So pricing controlled, they'll make a decent profit out of it. Not
have significant alpha in terms of PAT, overall PAT of these companies.
नहीं ज़्यादा नहीं होगा because see again Cadila and all they're already such a large company. On their PAT base, that vaccine ka PAT will not really move the needle significantly, right? Same goes for a Dr. Reddy's. Panacea and Wockhardt maybe थोड़ा बहुत movement आ सकता है PAT में, but then you also have to question the sustainability of that PAT, right? एक बार कोविड खत्म हो गया फिर कोविड की वैक्सीन कौन लेगा, correct? So वो एक बार का कैश फ्लो आ जाएगा, then how will it recur is my question. It won't recur.
Okay, so maybe in the last 2 minutes we've allowed Hindut and Ashish to also speak in case they wish to speak, and then we'll conclude the session.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Hello. Ashish here, sir. Sir, I am a graduate student, sir. Sir, I've been tracking, and sir, I've even heard your Varinder Bansal con call, which you did with Madhu sir and Shailesh sir. So, sir, recently we have added stocks like Divi's, Loris, and Granule. Sir, one stock that is in my dad's portfolio is Glenmark, sir. Sir, it is since the time it listed. Sir, that I've been tracking recently, and there are buzz that there is a API fundraise that they are going to do, and there is a R&D pipeline also that they are trying to monetize. So, sir, any views on that, sir? Like, have you tracked or about Glenmark, sir?
So look, I think Vikas missed this point initially, but my first job was actually with Glenmark. I was in their treasury from 2005 to 7. So मैंने 2 साल काम किया उस company के अंदर. I know the company probably too well, but for me the problem with Glenmark is that they're trying to do innovation as a business, and innovation as a business is like throwing dart in the dark. Okay, आंखें बंद है when you're trying to throw a dart on the board. Okay, so you don't know when you will succeed. Glenmark has already done innovation for 20 years and not succeeded. Okay? Now they may succeed tomorrow, or they may not succeed for another 20 years. Nobody knows, including Glenmark doesn't know this, right? Because you're trying to create something new. Na? You will fail time and again, and then suddenly one time हो जाएगा, right? Now that suddenly जब होगा ना, तभी Glenmark में बहुत पैसा बनेगा. Then shareholders, company like Glenmark will make a lot of money. But वो कब होगा ना, वो नहीं मालूम. Okay? So it can happen tomorrow. It may not happen for next 20 years also again. So
yes,
therefore, if you are investing in a company like Glenmark or Wockhardt also, um, you need to have an investment horizon of 10 to 20 years. And आपका जो पैसा बनना है ना वो सब 10 दिन में बनेगा, बट वो 10 days उस 10-20 साल में कब आएंगे वो नहीं मालूम. For the rest of the time you will not make any money. So let's say you buy it Glenmark at 500 rupees a share today, you keep buying at 500 rupees a share for the next 5 years, the stock continues at 500 rupees for the next 10 years, then in 10 days, once they hit a success in innovation, the next 10 days the stock will go from 500 to 2000 or 3000, and you will make your entire money of 10-15 years in those 10 days. The problem is nobody knows when those 10 days will come. It can come starting tomorrow or it can come 20 years down the road also. तो उतना पेशेंस होना पड़ेगा आपको अपने पैसे के साथ.
Okay, sir. And sir, one question about Natco Farm also. That also we actually recently studied. They also have a molecule called Revlimid. I think that they are going to launch next year. Sir,
Yeah, I like
any
Natco as a
views on that?
company. I like Natco as a company. I like Natco as a promoter. The promoter is excellent. Very, very good. The problem with Natco is that 70% of their profit comes from one product in the US, which is Glatiramir, Copaxone. Now that product, whenever incremental competition comes in, that profit will fall. Now वो competition क्या है, कल भी आ सकता है, हो सकता है 2 साल भी ना आए. That depends on the ability of the competitor to get product approval and launch the product. So that can happen any day, any time. We don't know. उनका जो current profit है ना, उसका 70% profit एक product से आता है US में. Now that one product, he's currently the only supplier. The day some other supplier comes there, his profits will fall because he'll have to reduce prices.
All right. So thank you, Aditya. Thank you, everyone. Now we would like to conclude the session.
Vikash, I just had a last question, if you permit.
Sure.
Mridul here.
Please go ahead.
Hi, Aditya. Always nice, listening to you, and thanks for the opportunity. Aditya, just two questions, quick questions. Firstly, just wanted to get your understanding on the API segment, in India, especially a company like, say, Heikel. What's your view on that?
No, so API segment, I'm extremely bullish. I think China, so I said during my presentation, China exports API worth $40 billion and Indian companies export API worth $4 billion. This China plus one rhetoric is for real. Huh? It's playing out. And companies like Heikel, Newland, Aarti, Laurus, they're all benefiting from this. And this is such a huge opportunity that there is not going to be one or two winners. There are going to be multiple winners out of this. Okay. And as long as you are able to maintain your own compliance track record and you don't get in trouble with US FDA or anybody else, I think all of these companies will make a lot of money, insane amount of money out of this. Because look, if China loses 20% market share, right, $40 billion, if they loses 20% market share, how much business did they lose? $8 billion. Let's say out of that $8 billion, that business comes to India का sale जो $4 billion है, वो 4 plus 8, 12 हो जाता है, right? So your growth rate is 200% if China's revenue declines by 20%. You know what I mean? ये जो बेस का डिफरेंस है ना, ये बेस का डिफरेंस बहुत बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है और ये प्ले आउट हो रहा है ऑलरेडी. इट हैज स्टार्टेड. It will play out over the next 10 to 20 years without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. So it's going to be a very, very big secular run in many of these API companies for the next 10 to 20 years.
So if I were to understand, you're saying there won't be a lot of differentiation with respect to these players. It's like a segment which is growing, but there will be differentiation. How do you differentiate?
There will be differentiation. So there are certain products where you cannot compete with China. So for those, so again, pharma is 4,000 molecules.
Right.
So China 4,000 molecule का raw material बनाता है. Out of that, my sense is about 1,500 to 2,000 molecules we can compete with them very, very effectively. But the balance 2,000 molecules we can't compete with them. So any of these companies, if they are trying to compete with China on those 2,000 molecules where China is dominant and will remain dominant, they will not make money.
Got it.
But if you are competing with China on the other 2,000 molecules where China is vulnerable and we can compete with them, there you will make money. So you can't just go out and buy any API company. You have to buy those API companies which are doing those products where we are competent with China. We can compete.
Makes sense. This is very helpful, Aditya. Many thanks. And just last one question is, when you're talking about the injectables, it's beginning of, the profitability might come down. So the brand play does not work there?
No, because the company we were discussing was Gland. Now they
Right.
are selling products to generics. They are not selling products to branded companies. So when you sell
Acha,
product,
okay. Okay.
so when you sell product to generics, 95% of Gland revenue comes from product sales to generic companies.
Got it. Got it.
तो आपका कस्टमर का अगर प्रॉफिट गिरेगा तो आपका भी प्रॉफिट गिरेगा ना. इज नॉट गोइंग टू पे यू द सेम एज अर्लियर.
Right. Right. Thanks, Aditya. Thanks, and I really appreciate your time.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
Mridul. Yeah, thank you, Aditya, for your patience. I mean, answering all the questions so patiently, and the questions are still going on. So what I'll do is probably post this session. I'll get in touch with you and
Sure.
try and know more from you.
We can do that.
Of time, and I
Thanks.
also wish you a good luck for running this PMS, and
Thanks.
I think you will continue to do well, no doubt on that. I also take this opportunity to thank Praveen Ladia, head of sales at Incred AMC, for helping us to put up this beautiful show out here. And I think the feedback that I'm getting from most of these investors are that the session really went off very well. So thank you so much. Praveen,
No,
anything
thank
that you want to add before
Thanks
we?
to Vikash being a new entity. Obviously, a platform like yours give us an audience to showcase what we are getting, something very different from our house. This is something which we believed that is making more sense from an investment perspective, and everyone should have. And that is why this is the first product from our house for the clients. So thank you for taking us to so many of your investors and partners.
No, thank you so much. It was really
And
wonderful. Yeah, Praveen.
any pending question you can compile and we'll sure we'll answer back to you.
Yeah, there are many. So I'll have to kind of compile and then share it with Praveen. And I know Praveen does not leave even single question unanswered. So probably I'll kind of bother him again post this session and ask those questions. So once again, thank you to all the investors for joining in, and we will answer all your questions. So please write to me separately at vikas@aifpms.com, and then probably I'll get in touch with Praveen and Aditi in turn and answer all your questions. So once again, thank you. And wish you all the very best, Praveen and Aditi. My regards to you and Incred AMC as a family.
Thanks, Vikash. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe.